So, Belinda is back with us again today. And, Belinda, we're talking about, of course, our children and some of the things we have a tendency to do, maybe not even cognitively understanding what we're doing. Today, we're talking about putting labels on our kids. I've done this with my own kids. I don't mean to. Sometimes it just happens. Belinda, I was telling you earlier that I have a set of twins and I have a tendency to label certain things. Oh, that's what twins do, or twins this, or you know what I mean? That's just one example of what I do. But let's talk a little bit about what we do with our children when it comes to these labels and some of the unintended consequences that happen as a result.
Yeah, that is it's really kind of a subject that touches my heart. Ever since I had my child, I feel like being around parents and hearing them label their child or actually using the label that has been given their child by an outside environment, right? A diagnosis. I get
Mm,
a visceral reaction where I just like my heart breaks a little bit.
yeah.
And I think it stems from like when I was a child, I was told I was stupid, right? You're just dumb. You're just dumb. You're stupid. And I don't know whether it was a joke or whatever. And it
Mhm.
made me feel bad. And then when I grew up, it was like, oh, that was just a label that was given me and it's not true. And
Yeah.
then I realized, just as you were saying, like I would use labels for my daughter too sometimes, like, oh, you're so lazy, right?
Mm,
But we don't have to say things like that. And can we be more mindful with our words? And so it's that, and also words matter, right? There is an energetic connection with the words that we use. And when we give somebody a label, we don't give them room for transformation.
yeah. Yeah. It's like putting them in a box, you
Yeah.
know, box with a label, and that's what you are.
Yeah.
And that can have a lot of damage on your psyche. I remember there were some things, and I grew up, fortunately, with very loving parents. But my mom had some tough love for me. She still does to this day. She's very blunt. And she would say stuff to me. And I think her intention was to help me grow or be better. But for example, she would say, well, you're not good at that, whatever that was.
Right.
And in my head, I was like she was thinking, don't waste your time on that because you're better at this. But later in life, when I would need to do whatever that first thing was that she told me I wasn't good at, there was always something in my head that was like, no, you're not good at that. You can't do that. And I don't mean to throw my mom under the bus, but we do this as parents, in
Oh,
general, not, we may have the best intentions, but this happens all the time.
yeah. Yeah, and I actually just interviewed Allison Ellsbury of Embodied Brilliance. This is
Hmm.
my second interview with her because she talks about labels, right? And
Yeah.
so we have this really engaging conversation around what a label does, right? How it informs your psyche as a parent and also the child's psyche and everyone around that person,
Yeah.
right? And when it's given to you outside of yourself, and it's the system telling you that your child has ADD or ADHD, right? It actually disempowers you,
Right.
right? And again, going back to the perfect child thing where we look at our children with rose colored glasses, if
Yeah.
somebody were to say, oh, your child has ADHD because she's not sitting in class, she's fidgeting, she's
Mhm.
disruptive. No, she's spirited. She wants to be outside. Children are naturally really connected to the spiritual world and to nature, and that's where they belong, right? So,
Yeah.
as a parent, can we take that and say, that's not how I'm going to describe my child? One. And two, this environment doesn't work for her, and she's clearly showing me that. So, how can I change her environment?
Yeah. Yeah, being proactive in it. What do you do though when you're in a society that constantly wants to put labels on things, right? We feel more comfortable. It's like we need to know what that is. What is that? That's unusual. That's strange. We have all these words. Oh, it makes sense because you have XYZ. So we like to have kind of, I don't want to call it closure, but it feels like at least you can identify things. So you feel like you're more in control. Maybe that's what's going on. But what do we do when we live in this world where that's just how life is? How do we combat that?
Well, I love that you asked that question because that's really essentially the thing, right? We feel better because we've labeled it.
Yeah.
However, how does it really feel? Right? One of the other wisdom keepers that I interviewed, she was going through the whole hamster wheel of having her child being labeled. She went to go see the specialist, and she was really starting to feel really terrible about herself and the future of her child. And
Mhm.
then finally she was like, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't believe these words. And so the first thing she said that she did was she called up all her friends, all of her close family, and was like, this is not how I'm describing my son anymore. These are not the words I'm going to use to describe him. And I'm also not doing all of this going to see specialists anymore, trying to fit him in a box. And she says since then, she's seen him form more vocabulary words, and he's happy and he's progressing so much faster than before. Right. So
Yeah.
basically, essentially, when you put a label that somebody's given you for your child, that dims their light. And when you let their light shine, right, then transformation comes. And so I think we're at a place right now where every person has a choice. You either want to do more of the same
Mhm.
because it feels easy, or
Mhm.
you want to take up that torch and say, I've brought this child into this world. She or he is going to transform this world. And the only way that we can allow these children to transform humanity in a positive way is if we get out of their way.